The Chain Gang Trader will be right back. It's yard time.
I'm not gonna lie. I got sentenced to 144 years in 2003. I ended up doing 16 years, 11 months before I came home. And I got sent to a level 4 yard twice on the same bid. And a lot of people get up here and they just act like they weren't fearful of anything occurring in that environment. And for me, I'm not gonna lie, I was always on edge. I wasn't a coward. If it came to me, I stood up. I defended myself. I never looked for trouble. But if it did come my way because you had to in prison, I dealt with it. But overall, it's those attacks and things that come your way that you can see that you can deal with a little bit better. You see, prison is a place that's very predictable. It doesn't really change. It's almost like that old school movie, Groundhog Day, if you will. Every single day, it's count times and confinement. You can study the people around you. And yes, things go left really quick within a blink of an eye. But usually, before it goes down, you can even feel it in the air if you're on point. But what happens when you didn't see it coming, when there was no reason at all? Because that is what occurred to me. That is what happened to me. That was my experience in prison one Sunday morning. You see, I remember clear as day because Sunday mornings were some of my favorite on this institution because it was the most quietest. Prison on the weekends, believe it or not, jumps. A lot of times prison jumps all the time. But while Saturday nights were often filled with gambling and loud noise, music playing through the TVs that they allowed us to get, the 13 inches to be exact, which was known as the big boy models, meals being cooked and more, Sunday was quiet. Everybody slept late. They missed breakfast. And those were the mornings that I craved the most in there because I would go out into the pod with the newspaper, sit at the benches and listen to the TV shows talking about the football games for the day, getting ready to put my tickets in. That's all I ever wanted was some time in there in those moments to drink my coffee without conversation, being surrounded by negativity and more. And it was a good Sunday because I was expecting a visit. I was already fresh. I had my blues on. They had got ironed the night before. I had my oils on, all of that. It's going to be a good day. But then it happened. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, one of the new transfers that just came into the block, maybe 2 or 3 days prior, that I did not know at all, started making his way to me. And I was sitting by myself in the very corner of the pod. And it wasn't my pod. You could sit anywhere you want, but there was so much more space. And we don't know one another. And I was not the super social guy in prison, though there are some of those people that exist. When he came over, it's almost like I felt it. I knew it was some BS. I knew dude was not coming in a peaceful manner. Almost immediately, he looked at me and said, "Hey, yo, I'm about to change this channel. I got something more important to watch." I really didn't care that much, but it was the way he approached me. I didn't care necessarily about what was on the TV. Yeah, I wanted to watch my little shows, but I weren't tripping like that. I had my newspaper. I was reading the lines. I had what I needed when it came to the information. You could have had, but you approached me really, really aggressive, off top, and I don't know you. I simply told him, "Hey man, no issue, no problem, but can you not talk to me like that? Like seriously, like I'm a good dude, man. I don't want no problems, but you coming off a little aggressive." And I remember also asking him, like, "You okay, man?" Like literally. The way he looked at me in my eyes in that moment, y'all, I knew he wasn't. And let me tell you something. There is a great percentage of people that are suffering from mental illness that have episodes inside of prisons without proper, it's crazy in there, right? And if you haven't went in there with some form of trauma that's working on your mind, you are living in it and it's working on your mind. And everybody does not stay sane in that environment. And some people are ticking time bombs. And I knew by his approach and his conversation and now the way that he was looking at me without words, that this was a ticking time bomb. Either that or I had did something to one of his people in the past. His people said something about me that I don't know what was going on in that moment, but I knew it was getting ready to go down. As soon as I went to stand up, because I was sitting down on the bench, as soon as I went to go stand up, y'all remember the wrestler Goldberg back in the day? Well, that's essentially what happened. I stood up with my coffee and newspaper because I wanted to just say what I said and then start exiting the situation, hoping that he at least respected what I said, or if it was an issue, at least I'd have time to prepare. And what I mean by that is I didn't want to be stuck between two benches because that's where I was at. When I stood up, he speared me like Goldberg. Like he literally did a running water boy tackle at me and coffee flying, newspaper down. Now I'm really upset because I was supposed to go to visit. My blues are messed up and we're in the middle of a full-on tussle. I'm glad that he didn't have anything on him in the moment, but he was reaching for one of the pins that had fell out of my front shirt pocket because I was writing down notes for the football games and how I wanted to bid on them. Well, when he reached for that, I knew it was serious. And I did what any self-respecting guy in that situation would do if he didn't have his tool on him, if you will. I reached below the belt and, well, let's just say I applied enough pressure to get him up off me quick. He hollered like a cat, and before the COs could make his way, he was crouching, doubled over, in pain, asking me why I did that. My simple response was, why did you attack me? I said it over and over again to the point that when the guards did handcuff me behind my back and lifted me and removed me from the block, that they did take the time to look at the camera. Of course, in prison, it doesn't matter. You still got to deal with a trial, kangaroo court hearing, etc. You could lose good time whether you were the aggressor or not. And no matter what, at that time, I went to solitary confinement, even if I didn't initiate. Just part of the process. Maybe at that time I needed it because what I got was a reset, more peace and quiet, and I wasn't a stranger to solitary confinement. But I was upset because I didn't get my visit. My people had already been on the way, and I was minding my business. But see, that's the thing, and that's what I need y'all to know. In prison, sometimes it doesn't even matter if all you do is mind your own business. For whatever reason, in a place called prison, it's not hard for the negativity to find you. And people, for no apparent reason, man, they just get it popping. And sometimes you're who they want to get it popping with. Y'all know what it is, man. We never glorifying this thing. We're going to continue to educate, tell the stories that matter so people can understand what prison really is, man. Stay locked in with me, but more importantly, stay free. Peace.
Hey everybody, that was Christopher Willars. If you don't know Christopher's stuff, definitely check him out. Solid guy, and all about recovery and all about his time in prison. 17 years, man. He was down for a lot longer than me, but we have, very similar stories and, different yet very different, obviously. But I always gained some real wisdom from him and memories. I had a great day today, and the end of the day I went hiking with my dog Riley around Lake Mohegan, and our friend joined us with his little dog. And then I came home and I took a nap in silence, and then I went to dinner. I'm like, I'm hungry, and I went to dinner at the diner, and I was able to order whatever I wanted. And I have these moments of gratitude, right? I forget, it's been 10 years since I was in prison, and just to be able to have that freedom to do what you want, when you want, to order whatever you want, for me to step into the kitchen here and grab ice and coffee if I wanted to at this time of night, which I'm not going to do, is really a blessing. It's all a blessing, so staying free is the objective. And being free of substances, alcohol and drugs caused almost everybody I know, everybody I've spoken to on this program and just in general, is the reason they're in prison. And, if you're in that right now, I pray for you and just tell you that you're eligible too. I never thought I would go to prison. I went to jail many times and always kind of skated through and got through things until I didn't. And my story is my story. And for those that want to listen, they just tune in here every week. Eventually you'll hear most of it. But let me just tell you something. And I tell people this. I'm like, you can keep going like you're going. Eventually this shit's up. And you will. if you may not fare as well as me or Chris, and you may end up killing someone, or you may end up in for the rest of your life. I've met so many people like that. I will tell you a quick story. So there was a guy, this is when I was locked up in county down in Georgia, and this guy had pretty fucked up face. He was an older guy like me. I was probably 48 at the time. And, I never really talked to him much, but one day he'd gone to court and he came back with his paperwork, and he asked me to come into his cell, which, you don't go into anybody else's cell unless they ask you. And I'm like, okay, yeah. He's like, I want you to look at something, because he knew I was educated, or I don't know what. I was one of the few that could read there and write. And that's not saying anything down about people. That was really my job. That was my gig while I was there. That's how I made store. That's how I made bank. That is how I survived in many ways and kept my mind alive, was by writing. I wrote letters to everybody, for everybody. And to judges, to lawyers, to girlfriends, to wives, to girlfriends and wives, and then wives again. And you name it, I wrote those letters, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. And this is a whole nother story, but in prison, you don't get real pens, like a big pen with plastic, no. So I'm diabetic, so you get a special tray, especially when you're in county, and they would tape your name to the side of it with Scotch tape, which was a real heavy commodity for a few reasons. And I would peel that off the tray. Sometimes people would trade for it, but I would peel it off the tray and then wrap it around the pen. Now these were just, all you got was the little tube with the ink in it and the ballpoint thing. No plastic around it, so it wasn't firm. You couldn't write with it. So I'd wrap the Scotch tape around the pen. Okay, probably took about 4 or 5 trays to get enough tape around it to make it stiff so you could write with it. And guys would collect what they could for me, and that way I could make a number of pens, because they wouldn't last forever either. But that's a whole nother story for a whole nother show. Anyway, I wrote to keep busy, and this guy calls me in his cell. I don't know him that well. I kind of knew his case had to do with the DUI, and that's about it. And he starts showing me these pictures from the evidence, and I'm looking at them, and I'm like, fuck, thinking to myself, Jesus. And it showed bodies hanging out of the car, and I'd been a paramedic in a past life, so I'd seen lots of death, and I've seen a lot. And so it wasn't that so much as like, oh shit, he was involved in this. And I thought that was him hanging out the window. So he begins to tell me his case. And he says, I was drunk with my wife. We were out with another couple, and we were at a bar. This is in Georgia. And his wife, and they all left. They were all shit-faced. And they all left, and they got the car, and the wife was going to drive. And he said, no, you're too drunk, let me drive. He was shit-faced too, but you know how it is. So he jumped behind the wheel, and the 4 of them rolled on their way. And make a long story short, they were going south, and a car was coming north. I guess it was a 2-lane road. And they hit the car. It was a family in an SUV, I guess, and hit it head on, and totaled the other car and killed everyone in it. A father, a mother, and 2 children that were in the back. Little kids, all 4 dead. In his car, the other couple that was their best friends both died, and his wife survived for a little bit, but then died. So all told, he killed 7 people. 7 people, including his wife. So I'm hearing this story for the first time. He's facing, in Georgia, he was facing life, okay? So vehicular manslaughter, and knowing you were drunk, that'll lead to a murder charge. He was looking at it all day. He was going to go down for the whole bit. And they were offering him 24 years, I think, versus, life without, or whatever it might have been. And he's telling me all this, and I'm listening to it, and I'm thinking, fuck, I'm not here for any of that amount of time, thanks, hopefully. And he goes, I said, I don't know what to tell you, man. I don't know. He's asking me what to do. Should I take the 24 years, or should I go to trial? And I'm like, he's like, I don't know what to do. And he was very downtrodden, and I was missing the point. So I said to him, I go, hey, I really don't know what advice to give you, man. That's a tough decision, no matter what. And he looked at me and he goes, I don't care about the time. I killed my wife, right? And I just felt that, man, right here. It just hit me like, fuck. Because this guy had a death sentence, essentially. He might have ended up spending the rest of his life in prison. I don't know. He might have got less. That isn't the point. Like, in his mind and in his reality, the woman that he loved was dead, and he killed her, and he couldn't get by that. And how could he? How could anyone? And that was the life sentence. And that's what I walked out of there from, and I still continued to drink, even after I left prison. And you know, I thought about all the times I drove drunk, or maybe that you have, and you just never know what's next around the corner. Thank God I was spared that. It could have happened at any time. It can happen to anyone, and you could end up in there. This guy did not go out that night planning to kill 7 people and then end up in prison for the rest of his life with the torture every day of knowing he killed his best friends, his wife, and an entire another family. So there you go. There's your Sunday night bedtime story. I will share, like Christopher did, that, you know, when you first get into prison, if you're new, if you're going, if you're scared, that's normal. If you're fearful, that's normal. Mainly, just listen, pay attention, and understand that majority of the time you're going to be bored, and that means everybody else is bored too, and they're looking for some trouble because they're bored. And the best thing you can do is just be respectful. Be respectful. You know, I went in there, I had no idea. And so I was in the line to get my blood sugar tested because I'm diabetic. And a bunch of guys were out there. The doctor didn't like me because I complained my blood sugar was, you know, going too low. He was giving me too much insulin. I was from the outside. I knew everything. I'm white. Don't you know who I am? Well, that shit doesn't fly in there. And the doctor cut off my commissary. So no store for me, which didn't make things better. And I'm pissed, right? And I'm out there on the line, and they check my blood sugar. She sticks my finger, and it's 180. And the guy behind me gets tested. He's an African-American guy who I didn't know. And his is like 380, I hear her tell him. And I'm like, wait a minute. I said to her, I go, wait a minute. Are you telling me the doctor hasn't cut off his commissary, but he cut off mine? Because mine's at 180 and his is at 380? Now, did I want to hurt this guy? No. That wasn't what my mind was doing. I'm trying to make her feel stupid, or make the doctor feel stupid through her. It's complicated. By telling her, look, what is he thinking? You know, this guy's got a 380. I've got a 180. No, that isn't what just happened. What just happened is I threw this guy under the bus, and this doctor might take away his commissary. And now I'm a dead man. Not only am I the wrong race, but I've now put myself in jeopardy, and I don't have a lot of the clicked up shit yet. I don't have any favors owed. And besides, in Georgia, if you're white, you're outnumbered, period. I don't care how friendly you are with each other. If it goes down by race, everybody clicks up. That's just the way it is. And I learned that in prison. But I did have some mercy put on me by this guy, the Reverend Atkins. And Reverend Atkins, he's got his own story, like I said. He came up to me and he said, you don't know what you did. I'm like, no, I don't. And he schooled me. He taught me. He's like, you might have jeopardized this guy's store, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. You know, you're marked. You're marked. Now, I got lucky because the doctor didn't do anything to him. They didn't take away his store. And I got a pass. And I got a free lesson, man. Because I would have got a beat down. No shit. Or I might have got killed for that. And so I got lucky a couple of times, but I learned, man. I learned to keep my mouth shut. And I got reminded a few times, I got schooled a few times by a few different brothers that, hey, you are not in the real world anymore. You can set that shit at the door. And I did. I set it aside. And then it's hard to shut it off when you come back out. And I can feel you if you're just coming out and it's overwhelming, especially if you spend any time in solitary like I did. It can be overwhelming, and there's lots of support out there. There's lots of help. Tune into me, tune into guys like Chris Willars, Portia Louder. You know, we've all been there. We all know what it's like, whether it's fed, state, county, whether you had addiction or didn't, whether you have mental illness and need help. It's all here for you. We all had to go through it. It takes time, it takes patience, but you can recover. Next week, we'll talk about paper probation and the pitfalls of that, because I had 10 years on paper. And let me tell you, I never could get, and I'll finish with this, I could never understand some of these guys that took more time. So they got offered paper. Yeah, 2 years and 8 paper. No, they'd say I'll give 4 years and no paper. And I didn't do that, you know. There are so many pitfalls in probation, especially for most people. I had every privilege I could imagine, every support that I might have needed. I had to do a lot of work, but I had a lot more than most, plus an education and a lot of other things that most people do not have. And it's been proven through a few different things. At Columbia University, they do a reentry program. Online, there's an app that is fantastic. I forget the name of it, reentryproject.org, I think, where you have to navigate getting through probation. The fees, the dates, the meetings, the appointments, the this, the that, in the middle of the day, trying to find a job that'll pay enough to get you around, to get a vehicle, to, you name it, the hurdle is there. Trying to find housing as a felon. I bet you, most people that haven't been through it don't understand what a challenge it is and why we have the recidivism rate in this country that we do. And that, again, is another episode, so I implore you. Oh, and I got to talk up the market quick, because that's part of the reason we come here. Let's turn around to the ticker so we can see. There. I'm going to come over here. Oh. See if you can see my face. Okay. So, yeah, let's shift into market news for a minute. So, I'm not talking my book. It's all there. It's transparent. So I had been holding 3 crypto, ERP, BTC, and Bitcoin, XRP, and Doge, and a couple others. And a couple of weeks ago, before the big crash, I'm like, I don't like this. It's just, it's sluggish. It's barely, I made a good return on my money. It's quite a bit of money. So I just said, I'm out. And I sold 98% of my crypto. Okay, this is about 2 weeks ago, so it's a little before the big crash, but I felt that was my top. And again, I for those of you who don't know, I used to trade over-the-counter derivatives. I used to trade commodity futures and options and long-dated swaps, some of the most risky instruments in the financial industry, okay? The most volatility, the most dangerous. Basically, when I would get a client with a $10,000 or $10 million, I would tell them, if you can't take this investment capital, throw it into the fireplace and smile. In other words, you don't give a shit. It's not going to change your lifestyle. I don't care if it's $1 or 10,000 or 10 million. I told this to everybody. Then don't trade this, okay? And that's how I felt about commodities and derivatives. This stuff, the crypto, fuck, man. I would be like, it's like the volatility and risk reward on it is so extreme for someone like me, okay? And I also find it hard to track the fundamentals, if there are any, which I don't think there really are. There's way too many things going on that it's very hard to read. So traditional fundamentals and technicals, in my opinion anyway, as a lifelong trader, 30 years, and you can look it up, don't really think those apply to these markets. You've got to be nimble, and you've got to have a second sense, and you got to have someone helping you and guiding you with a gut feeling that can see when this is getting heavy. Anyway, not talking my book. I'm just saying I sold out of all of it 2 weeks ago. The precious metals, I've always been bullish on, if you know any of my stuff. They're just reacting like they do, okay? So we have pending wars, we could be on the precipice of World War III. You've got very uncertain things going on in the economy. The Fed is not going to raise rates anytime soon. When does gold go up? When the Fed raises rates, gold goes down. Why? Because the dollar's worth more. It's pretty simple, okay? Gold is a harbinger of inflation. In other words, things are getting more expensive. Have you been to the grocery store lately?
Court is adjourned for this week. You are released. Chain Gang Trader Radio will be back next week. Remember, plan your trades and trade your plans. And most of all, stay free.
flight to quality mechanism, which makes the precious metals more attractive, and which is why we've seen the spike in those that we have. Will they pull back? Yeah, it'll ebb and flow technically, just because it will. When you get a rally like that, you're going to get a correction. But longer term, no, I think we're in a new world for gold. I've been talking about gold since it was at $600, and people telling me it was too high. And here we are 15 years later, and it's at 4,300, and it's going to like 8,000. But, you know, probably in the next, I don't know, it could be even sooner. The bottom line is gold is a tangible asset. Gold is gold, okay? If you don't want to trade the bullion, you can trade the futures and options, which is more portable. You got to remember, and I'll get into this in another episode when we do a precious metals episode, but you got to remember there's extra expenses with the actual bullion. So think about that before you enter it. You got to pay for security, insurance, and a whole bunch of things. Plus, you're going to pay on the way into a broker and out. So you got to take all that into account. Anyway, I'm rambling. So as far as the cryptos go, so I did buy back in today. I bought back in to Bitcoin, and I bought back into not Solana. Well, I bought into something else, but you know, again, I'm just playing with the $1,000 I left in there. I'm not going all in again yet, because I don't think we're done yet. This stuff remains so volatile that I don't think you've shaken out all the weak hands yet. This is not a time to look for a new high. I think you're going to trade in this range. Probably, my estimate is anyway, and I could be very wrong, is we get as high as maybe 118, 120, and then it sells off again big. It shakes out the weak hands. Nobody's got the stomach to make a new high right now. I don't think. Everything could change. But right now, I think both markets, gold and silver, and I like silver better than gold, are on the same trajectory as the crypto, okay? I don't think you're seeing a lot of money traded between the two, but that's just my opinion, okay? And that's all this is. That's all any of this is. But right now, I'm long those two at these levels. I probably will just be in and out on this several times, to the downside and then to the upside, because I think we're in a tradable market on both ends of this spectrum. Think about that. You don't have to be long or just short. You can just trade in and trade out. It's an adult swim, so dive in and then dive out. Just scalp all day long on this market. You can do it. I've done it, and that's my advice on the markets. Most importantly, as we always say in the show, stay sober. If you're not getting sober and you need to get sober, there's help out there. We have resources on our website, and then again, mainly check out Chris Willars' stuff. Congratulations to him and his wife. They have a new baby. That's awesome, man. You know, it's like we can accomplish anything once we're free, and we've seen it all. So be grateful. Be careful out there. These are tricky markets, and we'll be back this week with some more episodes. So thanks for tuning in.
8.2. So do you really want to roll those dice, knowing that you have a 1.8% chance of winning? I was shocked at the number of people in prison that were innocent.
Really?
Yeah, because they stack these charges on you. They'll charge you with 20 felonies. And then at the end, when you're beaten down, they say, all right, we'll dismiss 19 of them if you take a guilty plea to the one. Do 5 years. What are you going to do? You're facing 300 years in prison. The feds win 98.2% of their cases, according to ProPublica. 98.2. So do you really want to roll those dice, knowing that you have a 1.8% chance of winning? I was shocked.
Thanks for coming to the
Eighth
Amendment Cafe. And look for our next episode drop. Remember, stay free.
Get busy living, or get busy dying.